everyone, I'm Sharath Jeevan. I am a fellow at the Chandler Institute of Governance, and it's a real pleasure today to have the chance to interview Mr. Kamel Ayadi, a fellow at the Institute, but also a very distinguished leader who's had a very long and powerful career in public life, but also in other sectors, including in the nonprofit sector, the NGO sector, as well as dealing more widely in the business world as well. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. I want to dig in and learn lots from Kamel's experience and perspective. Kamel, a huge welcome today. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much for your invitation. It's a pleasure for me to talk to your people.
No, it's a real pleasure's all mine. And I know we've been battling Tunis traffic and so on as well. So I'm so glad we could make today and have this really important conversation.
Good.
Kamel, perhaps you can start by giving just a very, very brief summary of your career, particularly as it relates to public service. And that'll help us start the discussion, and we can jump in there.
Yeah, I worked mainly for as a public servant, and in the last 20 years I worked in a government position. I started my career as engineer because my initial background is engineer, but I moved throughout my career to different positions and to different sectors, and I learned a lot from that. But at the same time, I had, let's say, a career in civil society, because I have always been dynamic and involved in civil society activists. I chaired a number of engineering organizations, national organization and international organization. I was the chairman of the Tunisian National Engineering Society, which is a society that gathers all the engineers which are by law, they need to be registered in this engineering society. And after that, I was elected as the chairman of the World Federation of Engineering Organization, which is an umbrella organization that gathers together more than 10 million of engineers represented in 100 member countries. Along this, I had a public servant career. I was in 2001 appointed as a chairman of the Regulatory Authority of Telecommunication, then as a Secretary of State in infrastructure. After that, I was appointed as a senator, because one third of the senators are appointed directly by the head of state among national competencies. After that, I was appointed as a minister of anti-corruption and the public service. And after that, I was appointed as a minister to the head of state in charge of the high-level authority on administrative and financial control, which is the authority that oversees all the system of audit and control in financial system in Tunisia.
Fantastic. What an incredibly rich and distinguished career, and such an interesting career path you've taken. Just a quick question, when you were younger, starting your career, did you always want to go into public service, or did that public service part come by surprise or by accident?
It was not really by accident. It was a choice. I had the opportunity to work for private sector, but as a civil engineers, most of the work in civil engineering is done by the state. So it was natural that I was recruited in the public sector. I graduated in 1984. So at that time, the public sector was the most of the job opportunities were offered by the public sector.
Fascinating. And given that career journey you described, where you obviously got to very, very senior levels in government, both on the administrative side as well as the elected side, how did your perspective on your role change, and particularly on your perspective on career success and leadership? What were the big learnings you had as you grew your career?
Yeah, I think this is something inevitable and natural, that our perspective and thinking about career success changes while we evolve from one step to another, and maybe later from one year to another as we progress through our professional career. Of course, your question leads me to talk about the success measurement, how we measure the success, career success. What are the criteria that matters the most in successful career? Here also success perception varies from one individual to another. For some people, maybe professional success is a synonym of getting a good job with a high salary, with a good conditions, working conditions, opportunity to travel, and so on. Whereas for some others, rewarding professional career is based on holistic views about career success, which rather means opportunity to grow intellectually and continuously learn new things, to have opportunity to develop leadership capacities and to lead initiative and projects that could have a massive impact on others. Here you can see the difference between leaders and followers. I wouldn't say that leaders are best than followers. We need both of them, leaders and followers. But leaders have the merit of being able to inspire others and to influence change, whereas followers have the main mission which is essentially to execute. So as far as I'm concerned, and the criteria to measure career success depends on my career episodes, because I see that a career is a sequence, a logical sequence of steps, and each step will lead you to the following steps. So for the beginning, when I started my career, for me, the measurement of career success was based on the opportunity I could have to learn new things, to build capacity. And for this reason, I always advise young generation to consider their first employment, first job, the first years of their career as a logical continuation of the learning process. So sometimes this criteria is not taken into account by some of the young generation. They look for a good job, to have the opportunity to travel, to have a good salary, and to have a good working conditions. If they wanted to go far in their career, they need to look for the job that provide them with the opportunity to learn new things, to add something to their resume, and this will equip them with the ability to go far in their career. For this reason, from the beginning of my career, I have accepted a lot of voluntary work. And I must admit that voluntary work helped me to build my professional capabilities. Why? Because in voluntary work, you can take initiative. Much more than what you were offered as a public servant. You know that as a public servant in public service, everything is framed. The scope is always limited. There is always a strong hierarchy, so you cannot take initiative. Whereas when you are in civil society, you can take a lot of initiative, and each initiative it's always an opportunity to learn new things. So the measurement of success at the beginning of my career was the opportunity to learn, how much I can learn from this job. This is the measurement. If I was able to learn more things, that means for me, I was successful. If a work doesn't provide me with this opportunity, for me, it's not a success, even if I get maybe higher position and so on. When we are in mid-career, this perception, these visions, this perspective change. The rating scale of success becomes the ability to accomplish mobility. When you are able to accomplish, to move from one job to another, particularly when you are able to move from a job to another job out of your core of specialization, of your expertise. This is a recognition of a successful career when once you are fed up or you are no longer enthusiastic about your job. If you are able to find another job that provides you with the professional fulfillment, that means for me is a success. This is a sign of success if you can move from one other. And for me, we cannot talk about career success if we remain in the same job for more than 10 years. I think if you stay for more than 7 years, you can no longer talk about success. You have to think about other things. And the third criteria and the measurement of success in career relates to the ability to initiate and lead a change. Here we can reach the culmination step. It's the culmination step of your career. Usually it's at the end of your career, although we cannot talk about end of career. Of course, there is an end of career when you are a public servant because you start at a starting point and you need to leave for retirement at the ending point. But a career never ends because you can continue to work as what it's like what I'm doing right now is going to work to provide voluntary work, to work as a consultant, to work as a civil society activist, and I can all the time make benefit of my experience to help others. So my perspective in thinking about career success in this stage is depicted by the ability to initiate and lead initiative, which could have massive impact on others. I would never talk about career success if I wouldn't have the opportunity to lead initiative and the initiative which can have an impact on the well-being of others and on the public service. So you start your career. Yes, please.
No, I just want to make sure I sort of capture that. So I think what I heard is that the beginning of your career, you want to think about learning. That's the first motivation, the first thing that really should drive our choices. We then move towards achievement and accomplishment. And then finally, we move to legacy, for want of a better word, that sense of leaving something bigger behind us that helps others as well. Is that how you'd see it, that progression over time?
Exactly. I can say that I have accomplished the three steps which I consider critical for success. The first one was to have the opportunity to learn. And I recognize that I have learned from civil society more than public service. And what I have learned from civil society helped me a lot in my professional career, because when you prove your ability to be leader for a national organization, a large national organization, it's a proof of your leadership capabilities. And this capability will be recognized by authority. It works like this in our country, or at least it worked like this. The authorities, they wait till you see that you provide them with the proof of your leadership capabilities. Then you can trust you. And then when you can trust you, they can appoint you. And this is exactly what happened to me. When I was, before being appointed as the chairman of the Telecommunication Regulatory Authority, I worked as a civil society in my international organization as a chairman of the standing committee on communication and information. So I did my first learning of that new disciplines in civil society. Then this experience was recognized by public service, and I had the opportunity to be appointed in such a high-level position.
So I fully understand it. And you've really very intentionally drawn your career journey, which is very powerful. Lots of learning for those earlier in their careers. But if I was perhaps someone earlier in my career and I was listening to you, I might ask, is it not possible to achieve learning, have achievement, and achieve a legacy earlier in my career? Do I need to go through these steps, or can I create jobs or roles that enable me to do all those three things at the beginning? How would you?
I think it could be possible, but at my time, it was not possible. You need to prove yourself, to prove your capabilities. Then once you are entrusted with high-level assignments, then you can change. So if you are at the beginning of your career, you are not, you don't have the opportunity to do what I was able to do at the end of my career. So this is a logical movement throughout a career. We start by learning. We start by building ourselves, our capabilities. We start by learning new things. Then we move from one work to another to have our knowledge wider, to know the other sectors. Then once you have an assignment as a chief executive officer or as a minister, then you can change that. Then you can provide a vision. Then you can have the ambition to lead a change and to lead initiatives to change, and which could have an impact on others' life.
Thanks, Kamel. And part of that was also that, you know, it was interesting, you had to learn and take opportunities outside of civil service. You had to go and work in the NGO sector because there was more autonomy, more freedom available. Do you think civil services will change so they can develop people from within? Because you were obviously very resourceful. You went outside the sector and found these voluntary opportunities. But do you think it may be possible in the future for that to be less important and for younger people to develop within the service itself some of these wider skills and prove themselves?
I think now it has become an asset for young people, and it's even advised by their employers to have a first experience in civil society. And now, and I know that this in the public service, when we look to recruiting someone, we look for his CV and if he's equipped with an experience in civil society, because what you do as a public servant has an impact on the society. So you need to understand the society, and the civil society, you work in civil society will provide you with the opportunity to learn much more communications ability. You can communicate with others. You can understand the needs and the expectation of the society as a whole. Whereas when you are working and narrow-minded in public servant, you will do what you are requested to do only. So you won't have that vision, that holistic vision to see the global picture of what you are doing, and you link what you are doing with others, with other things, with other initiatives. And this I always, I've always advised engineer not to be just a technically competent. You need to have a social competencies. You need to be able to communicate your vision. You need to be able to measure the impact of what you do on the society, because what you do, what each of us does as an engineer, as a journalist, it has automatically an impact on the society. So learning how the society works, how you can communicate with the society, with different constituency of the society, this would be an asset that will value the person who is looking for a job.
Very helpful. That really helps. And can I move on to think about, we talked about perspective and how it's changed over your career, this idea of essence. So who are you as a leader, and what do you think your biggest motivators and strengths were as you developed in your career? How would you describe it?
Okay. Yeah. If you wanted to lead a group, to be a leader, to lead a group of individuals in a small scales, in a specific area, you should be first and foremost knowledgeable about it. This is the first strength. Therefore, I would say that the strength number one for effective leadership is to have deep knowledge about your area of expertise. Let me give you a simple example. I have been working now for more than 2 decades in anti-corruption in the governance. And my ultimate objective has been always to stimulate a change in the society. So if I wanted to influence a change on public policies on this matter, on governance, I have first to persuade policymakers, public opinion about the cruciality of good governance and its impact on social and economic development. So you need to have expertise. The first strength is to have the appropriate expertise. You are not asked to have expertise in a wide, large domain, but in what you think to be leader, you need to develop your expertise. And expertise is critical because the more your expertise is widely recognized, the more you will be considered as a reliable and trustworthy source of advice and guidance. Of course, there are also leadership skills, not only being careful about one particular specific issue. You need to have what we call soft skills and leadership skills, which are so important. You need to be a good communicator. This is one strength. You need to have the ability to think out of the box, to have a critical thinking, to have the ability to develop vision and to inspire others and to influence a change. But for effective leadership, I would say that the essential strength is to be well-grounded. With a structured thinking, a structured mind. This will give you the ability to create a structured framework and to solve unstructured problems. Being well-grounded, well-thought person. So now coming to motivators, of course, recognition is a powerful motivator. If what you do is recognized by others as a valuable thing for the society and for others, this will give you certainty that you are on the right path. This is so important. And you will need recognition throughout your career. Of course, recognition is maybe much more critical at the beginning of your career, but you will need recognition throughout your career. But recognition doesn't mean that you lack self-confidence. It doesn't mean that you are looking for external energy or for external resources to build your self-confidence, to build your own determination and beliefs about what you do. This is not the point. We're not looking for something that will energize you. Your recognition is not the main energy that will propel you, but this will come from your internal resources, your internal beliefs and your internal conviction. But always you will need signs of recognition from external resources. So we need to understand recognition. It's essential, but it's not all, because it's something that will foster what you do, something that will help you to think that you are on the right path. When you start your professional career, the main motivation are personal. At the beginning of my career, it's logical, it's natural that you wanted to rise above the normal people. Your first dream, to be one of the best, to be recognized. But while you move throughout your career, your motivation will change. And your motivation will be to influence the change, to lead initiative that with massive impact, which will last after you and which will be used by other after you. This is, I think, these are the core strengths which I believe are essential and the motivator which helped me in my career.
Very powerful, Kamel. And I love this idea of moving from, in my language, external motivation towards internal motivation as our careers change and building that that piece as well. And just one, the other question I wanted to ask linked to that is, that sense of essence is very strong, and you spoke very powerfully. As you thought about, you had a very intentional approach to your career. You thought about these stepping stones. How do you think about now your direction in terms of where you want to go next? Because it sounds like you're always growing and evolving. Where would you like to go next as a leader?
Yeah, it occurs that our country is at the crossroads. So I've worked for more than 3 decades as a public servant, and 20 years of which in high level in governmental positions. My ambition for the future is to help my country in designing effective public policies and strong institutions with the ability to support economic growth and social development. I think this is the main challenge that my country is facing nowadays. And I position myself and my dreams in this perspective. How to be useful for my countries in these particular circumstances. I have some expertise in governance, which is a critical challenge that most developing countries are facing nowadays. Over the past years, I was asked to provide the government with my visions and my proposals and my guidance on how to build a good governance system. My country, but it appears that my country nowadays is undergoing a special and a crucial transitional period in its history. So my country will need a strong leadership, particularly political leadership. And political leadership will rely on skilled person and with competent person to translate their vision into reality. So this, what I can do is to provide my country with advice on how we can make the appropriate reforms to be able to support economic growth and social development. To be honest with you, we are in a bad situation because trust has become a scarce resource nowadays in our countries, particularly because policymakers are unable to meet the expectations of the citizens. We also witness a leadership crisis, which is coupled with a shortage of talented people in the decision-making positions. So what I position myself in is to help my countries in reforming the public system, the public sector system, in establishing robust and strong institutions which can translate and can translate all what is expected by the population into reality. Yes.
No, what's really striking me as you spoke, it was so powerful, is that it's almost like, you started your career, like most people, thinking about, how do we get promotion, these kind of external motivators. Then it went more internal. How do I make an impact, leave a legacy? Now you're almost at the stage where you're almost sort of dissolving, we say in English, like you almost become invisible. It's about, where is the country going? How can I do the most for my country? So almost stepping back and not thinking about yourself, but thinking about the bigger need out there as well. So that journey from, thinking about the, working conditions, pay, it's gone such a strong direction through. Is that good advice for other people to think like that as they go through their careers? Would you advise that way of thinking, to be able to really think about the national priorities, the bigger picture, and see how their work fits in to that?
Yeah, exactly. I think the big picture is now is much more a priority. So we need to join forces and to help the countries, because the economic situation is not good. The political situation is even worse, and the social expectations are rising, and the government is not able to deliver what it is expected to do for particularly needy people and for young generations. And now we experience and we witness a lot of shortage of new skills. Most of new graduates, they leave the country to work outside, and this is our responsibility as experienced people, to prepare for them and to give them the opportunity to realize their dream in their own countries. Of course, it's good to have an opportunity to start a job in developed countries. That's good. I wouldn't say that that is something bad. But we need also for young generation to think that they need to think about their own country first, and they need to be provided with the opportunity to change things. So this is not happening, and I'm trying to do with some. I'm in process to publishing a book in which I will give some advices about the next step, how we can reform the public sector, how we can build a robust governance system in the country, because these are the basic things that we need to start with to be able to have a public sector that can deliver, because the public sector will support the private sector, and without a strong and robust public sector, we cannot talk even about private sector, because we had the opportunity and the privilege in the last decades to have a public sectors which was led by a skilled person, highly talented people. No, it's not the case. Talented people are leaving the public sector. They're leaving to have other experience because of the political situation is not the best that can give the opportunity to talented people to fulfill their dream and to help change things.
Thanks, Kamel. No, really helpful to follow that. And I want to switch on to this topic of assumption. So we talked about, the idea of perspective, of essence, of the direction you took. I'd love to know about what assumptions, when you started your career, what things have you had to change in terms of how your assumptions about leadership and career success? Is there anything that really you had to really rethink during your career?
Oh, good. I like talking about assumptions and mental models because mental models affect our reasoning and behaviors and have influence over outcomes and actions and decisions. So I wanted to talk about assumption and mental models in leading, in participating in initiatives that can influence change in public policies. I have been involved throughout my career as a senior public servant in a number of public policy reforms in different areas: economic and social development, public service delivery, training, education, and so on. So I have also been involved in public policy reforms as a representative of a group of individuals, such as marginalized community. I worked in the field of economic development, and I represented the most marginalized community and my aim was that the economic development should take into account the specific expectations of these marginalized community. I represented also the engineering profession in reforms, in public reforms. So in similar cases, reform take the form of negotiation. So whether you are participating as a leader, as a governmental officials in an initiative to lead the change, or whether you are participating as a representative of other communities, you need to develop your own visions. You need to meet the expectation of people who have entrusted you to be their representative. You need to set your goals. to fix your strategy. Public reforms are challenging because they encompass a number of dimensions. And one of the most challenging dimensions is the human dimension, because humans are always resistant to challenge. It is hard to let them change their own perception of reality. So it's difficult to change their assumption and beliefs. Then when you lead or you participate in similar reforms, you need to be flexible. And this, I wanted to talk about the mental models that depicted my approach in participating or in leading change. We need to be flexible and to accept compromise. And I will come back to compromise. You must be happy to achieve some of the targeted goals while keeping other goals, while keeping up with the ultimate goals. You need to capitalize your achievements. Capitalize on your achievements, even if they are small, and you believe on the compound effect to reach your final objectives. If you wanted to set a goal and you wanted to achieve your own goals, sometimes it's impossible, because you need to break down reforms into small pieces. Maybe people with whom you are working need time to integrate your philosophy and to integrate your vision and your way of thinking. So you need to give them the opportunity. So you need to review your ambitions and your goals and to go step by step in order to achieve your ultimate goals. You need to develop the ability to handle the art of compromise. And I wanted to talk about compromise without surrendering your principles. There is a nice word in French to express the word compromise, which is different from English. In French, we have two words to express the meaning of compromise. You have compromis, which is compromise, the same as like English, which means solution and agreement between two persons or groups of persons. But we have also in France the word compromission. And when a compromise is motivated by a private interest, when you give up too much to reach an agreement with a hidden compromising benefit for yourself, it becomes a compromission. So in French, we say a compromise is not a compromission. When you make a compromise on the name of people that you are representing, you always fear that this will be perceived as a compromission, that you are hiding something beneficial for you to accept the compromise. So a compromise is not a compromission. So you need to be prepared to compromise. You need to be prepared to be soft and to be flexible and to be patient. And you can scale your ambitions, and you can break down your own goals into, you can fragment them, and you can achieve them piece by piece instead. And I sometimes met with people with this mindset, but I have also met people with the opposite of this. So they broke everything. Everything is broken because they cannot make a compromise. So this mental model and this assumption that wisdom will always prevail, that you have to be patient, this is something that I have worked with. This is something that helped me to achieve certain things and to not to give up, that wait, there is always a try in the future. If you are not able to achieve everything at this time, think that the future will provide you with the best opportunity to achieve this. So being patient, being ready, inclined to make a compromise, this is something critical. This is a mental models that will help you achieve all your dreams, that you have to wait the opportunity.
Yeah. No, very powerful. I mean, that idea of balance and trying to find that balance between being clear and authentic to yourself, but also realizing you're part of an organization and have to adjust those priorities is very, very powerful. Thank you. We've covered a lot. I think we've talked about learning already. The last area I would love to talk about briefly is around nurturing others. And it sounds like you've had such an incredible richness in your career. I'm sure there have been other people in your career who've helped you as you've gone through these stages. What was remarkable about them? What really made them effective? And how do you nurture others now, given you're in a position of influence and can help them?
I think nurturing others is a must, because we owe always something to others, be they our superior or be they our seniors or our colleagues or our teachers. We owe to them something. So if we wanted to give them back, this is to nurture other people like you had the opportunity to be nurtured. So let me talk about first about the mechanisms that helped me in advancing my learning process throughout my career. And this is what I would advise to a young generation. There are 3 mechanisms that helped me to advance my learning process throughout my career. The first one is the career mobility, and I talked about career mobility. The second one is doing voluntary work, and I talked about voluntary work. To accept to do voluntary work is one of the best ways to learn and to grow. And the third thing, which I talked also about, is leading initiative, willing and being ready to take up the challenge to promote and lead initiatives. Mobility, I always advise young generation to go for mobility, to not remain in their zone of comfort, because it's very easy to stay in your zone of comfort because it's the easiest way to have a good life. When you accept, and this has happened to me at least 3 times, when you accept to move from one job to another job, particularly when the job where you move on is out of your core of specialities, that means you accept to be unqualified for a certain period. Because, of course, you have the necessary skills, but you don't have the whole set of skills which are required for that job. Then what you will do is to learn quickly, to grow your qualifications, and to be able to do your job appropriately. So mobility in work will put you in a position where you will feel incompetent, where you will feel unqualified. Then you will take up the challenge to learn quickly. This is the best way, which helped me a lot. And I told you, when I was appointed in 2001 as a chairman of the Telecommunication Regulatory Authority, it was something new, totally new for me, because it involved, that job involved at least 3 sets of skills: legal skills, economic skills, and technical skills. Technical skills, I was equipped with technical skills, but in a different area, in a different domain, in civil engineering. So I started from scratch, and I wanted to go to learn for 2 years, but learning at night, of course. So this was an unprecedented opportunity for me to learn new things. So these are the motivators and the mechanism that will help anyone to learn throughout his own career. So my idea now is in nurturing other people. What I did over the past years, over the past 10 years, I led some initiative to train young generation on ethics, on leadership, and I promoted the creation of a number of initiatives And my role was just as a supervisor. I create an NGO named Engineers Without Border, and it was led by young engineers. And my role was just to provide them with guidance, nurturing them, mentoring them, and giving them the opportunity to make mistake and to learn from their mistake. So I think nurturing is something very essential, because when you expose yourself, when you closeness with talented and experienced people, is an unprecedented opportunity. When you work with people, with wise people, with talented people, you will learn a lot from them. So the nurturing people is also making them work with you, observing you, and learning from your experience, from your way of doing things, from your way of conducting technical workshops, etc., etc.
Well, thank you so much. And I feel like this has been a very nurturing conversation we've been having in terms of learning and hearing so much about your career perspective as well. It's been really enlightening. And I think my overall impression is I'm almost imagining like a tightrope, a balancing act, where we're having to balance these things. So, for example, you talked about the need to have an expertise, but also be open to developing new areas of expertise and being unqualified as we take on new roles, for example. You talked about how we need to be very driven by our own motivations, our internal motivation, but also realize we're part of an organization as well. We talked about this idea of how our compass shifts, our motivational dial shifts towards the idea of leaving, going internal, but then also thinking outside about what is happening in my field, my world, my country. So that idea of leadership being very much a balancing act is kind of what I'm coming out with today. Thank you so much. It's been such a fascinating conversation. I know many people around the world will, even more than the ones you're directly working, will benefit from this conversation. And wish you all the best in this very exciting stage of your leadership journey as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Before ending, let me give just final words. Please. I see you asked me about how I see my role in my countries, and I tried to respond to your question. And I wanted to see that I see also my role as a global citizens. I have worked at the international scene for 20 years. And I see that I can help international organizations like CIG with my experience, because through my experience, I have learned that there are a lot of international organizations which are doing very good things to help local government to develop their own local strategies, and CIG is one of them. So I see also my role as a global citizens to help international organizations which are looking for experienced people to design their strategy and to provide something useful to local government. So this is something also that I see as useful for the future, for my future.
No, thank you. I'm sure it's such an exciting journey ahead. So thank you again for the conversation. Thank you today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation.